Now today's topic is life cycle hypothesis, which was given by Modigliani, Bloomberg and Ando. Alberto Ando, Modigliani and Bloomberg has given this hypothesis idea. So on the basis of the first letter of their name, this hypothesis is also called MBA hypothesis. We have already determined that the Keynesian consumption function, that is basically in the form of C is equal to A plus BY. Now if we divide this consumption function or this equation by Y, that is our income, so then it will become, or it will be created as C by Y is equal to A by Y plus B. Now what is C by Y? C by Y is the average propensity to consume, or APC. Okay, now this APC is observed, that is, this APC is constant in the long run, but this APC is variable in the short run. Why is this happening? There are several economists who has given several theories on this regard, that why this long run constancy and short run variability of APC is actually occurring. Life cycle hypothesis is one of those theories. Now in this theory, in this life cycle hypothesis, our whole life or our entire life actually depends on our lifetime expected income or our lifetime expected earning. That means all the money that we are going to earn in our entire life period is basically determining our consumption. So basically our permanent consumption, that is the consumption of our entire life period, will be depending on our lifetime expected earning. That means the amount of money that we are going to earn in our entire life, that is going to determine our permanent consumption. So obviously the permanent consumption is a function of expected earning or lifetime expected earning. Now we will try to see it as a graphical representation. Now in this graphical representation, we have taken t or time in the x-axis and the consumption and income in the y-axis. C dash is the consumption curve and y dash is the income curve. So when we are starting our life period, then the income is less than consumption. As you can see in this point, when our income is actually less than our consumption, at this point, at this graphical, at this zone, our income is actually less than our consumption. That is the beginning point of our life, in which period we basically don't earn anything or we earn very little and our consumption is very more than that. But after that our income rises, and as our income starts to rise, our savings starts to occur, because our consumption more or less remains kind of stable during the entire life period, but our income is increasing with time. So after the point t0, this is basically the point t0, so after this point, I mean to say this zone, this savings zone, is basically our period of time in which our income is greater than our consumption. In this zone, we are basically, the consumption is basically going from down and the income curve is going from above or up. So we are basically doing more income, but our consumption is less. So we are actually doing a saving in this zone. But after that, after the point t1, we are again returning to the point where the income is less than the consumption. That means in these two zones, we are actually doing this saving. This saving means we are actually consuming more than what we are doing the income. I mean our consumption is more than our income in these 2 points. But in this point, our consumption is less than our income and our income is greater than our consumption. So at this point, we are doing a saving. This is also written here. At first, when a person starts to earn, consumption is greater than income, and then T0 to T1 is the time path or time period when consumer is saving, because income is greater than consumption. Here it will be consumption, it will not be income. I have written it wrong. It will be consumption. So it will be consumption. Just check it again and rewrite it. Now, and in the old age, consumption is again greater than the income. So there is no problem in this statement or in this graphical representation. Now there are some assumptions of the life cycle hypothesis that the utility function is homogeneous. There will be a movement in income and consumption. Obviously the consumer will earn money income, and that's why the consumption will also increase at first. Then after some point the consumption will be basically more or less stable. So the consumption and income will have a movement, and there will be lifetime planning of the consumer. The consumer will plan that how much to consume in what period of his life. So there will be a planning of consumption by the consumer. There is perfect certainty regarding to interest rate, future price and income. That means the future price, interest rate and future income, all of those are certain. There is no uncertainty in any of the aspects. Perfect certainty means all of this future rate and future interest rate, future price, future income are certain. There is nothing about uncertainty in this. Interest rate will not suddenly fall, or interest rate will not suddenly increase very much. Future price will not suddenly increase very much or suddenly fall very much. Income will not suddenly fall very much. So this type of certainties are there in the assumption, and no uncertainty is basically allowed in the model. Similarly, in the next assumption, individuals are able to borrow or lend any amount of money they want at the same rate of interest. So this is a very critical assumption, that individuals are allowed to borrow or lend any amount of money they want. Economic agents always desire to keep their consumption stable. So it doesn't even matter that my consumption is very high or consumption is very low. Suppose I am earning 10,000 rupees per month currently, and my earning has decreased from 10,000 to 6,000 rupees per month suddenly. Now I will try to keep my consumption stable. I will try to keep my consumption more or less stable even after the fall in my income. So that is the motive of the economic agents also. Economic agents means all the consumers who are actually consuming have the motive to keep the consumption more or less stable. Economic agents or individual doesn't receive any gift or inheritance. This is the next assumption. And the last assumption tells us that the objective of the household members is to maximize utility subject to the resource constant. Whatever the income the family or the household have, the household or the family will always try to maximize that income by utilizing it properly and making most of the consumption possible by that resource or by that income that they have. So that is the motive, or that is the objective of the household, to utilize their income or utilize their resource properly to get proper satisfaction or proper utility or proper satisfaction from the resource that they have. Now, as per the life cycle hypothesis, consumption, that is CT, that means consumption of the present period, is basically equal to KT into UT. Now what is UT and what is CT? CT is basically present value of expected flow of income the consumer wants to consume. As I have said, the CT is nothing but CT is the consumption. The consumer really wants to consume CT amount of consumption. So CT is the present value of expected flow of income the consumer wants to consume. And what is UT? UT is nothing but the present value of expected flow of income. So suppose the actual flow of income. Now suppose the consumer wants to consume 100 rupees worth of consumption. Okay. And UT is the present value of expected flow of income. That means the consumer's current income is basically denoted as UT, or the present value of expected flow of income. That means the income that is currently coming towards the consumer, that is UT. So suppose this UT is basically 80. Now 80 and 100 are not equal. So to equate this, we need a KT. What is KT? KT is a constant, and KT will be a proportion that will be multiplied with UT to get CT. Now we have to determine UT, or we have to try to determine UT. How to determine this UT? For determining UT, at first we will try to divide the total income into two parts. One is the labor income and another one is the asset income. So our total income is divided into two parts. Y is equal to YL plus YP, where YL is labor income and YP is asset income. I don't think there will be any problem in this part. Now if we move to the upper portion, now what is UT? UT is basically, as I have said earlier, that UT is my total current income. So that total current income is nothing but it is the labor income, that is YTL, that means the labor income of T period, and YTP is what? The asset income of the P period. Now what is small t denoting? Small t is denoting summation t is equal to 0 to capital T. That means small t is denoting that I am living from 0 years to T years. So my labor income and asset income from 0 years to T years, that is denoted by this 0 to T period. So my all the labor income of my entire life and all the asset income of my entire life starting from 0 to T, so that is denoted as summation t is equal to 0 to T, and that is our YTL and YTP. YTL is what? YTL is our labor income and YTP is our asset income. Now this is very clear. Now why have we divided the labor income and asset income by 1 plus r to the power t? This is because we are not sure about our labor income and present income of the future period. We are actually assuming it. So that's why we have divided it by 1 plus r to the power t, that is basically discounting the future labor and asset income. If you have to discount any of the future income or any of the future variable, then you have to discount it by dividing via 1 plus r to the power t. So that is the thing that we have also tried to done here. Now here this portion or this part is basically our asset income, and we have denoted this asset income as A0 and other part remained same. So this, let us take A0 as our labor income. I have denoted this also. Now our UT has become, suppose I have taken what was it was initially it was okay, now initially it was YTL summation t is equal to 0 to 1 to t is equal to 0 to t YTL by 1 plus r to the power t. Now we have taken here summation t is equal to 1 to t. So labor income of the initial period, that is Y0L, it has taken differently here. So Y0L, that is basically the labor income of the initial period, is taken differently, and after the initial period, that is T is starting from 1 to T, has been taken differently. So this is the labor income starting from 1 period to T period, and this is the labor period income of the initial period, and this is our asset income. Now Y0L is not required to be discounted. Why haven't we divided Y0L by 1 plus r to the power t? The reason behind is that the Y0L is the initial period income, or initial period income is not supposed to be discounted. That's why we haven't divided Y0L by 1 plus r to the power t. Now what is average expected labor income? Average expected labor income. Okay, what was labor income? At first try to understand what was labor income. Labor income is summation t is equal to 1 to t YTL divided by 1 plus r to the power t. This is our labor income, right? Summation YTL by 1 plus r to the power t, where t belongs 1 to t. This is our labor income. So if we divide it by the time period, then we will get the average labor income. Now what is the time period? Time period is starting from 1 and going to t. That means that is capital T. So time period is starting from 1 and going to capital T. So what is the entire time period? The entire time period is obviously t minus 1. This is very simple to understand. Suppose the time period is starting from 1 and going to 80 years. So what is my lifetime period? That is 80 minus 1, that is 79. Similarly, the time period is starting from 1 and going to capital T. So what is the time period? Entire time period, that is capital T minus 1. So we have divided this this labor income by T minus 1 to get the average of the labor income. or we are saying it that it is the average expected labor income. Now we are denoting this average expected labor income by Y0E. So Y0 is as our average labor expected income. Now it is written in the form as Y0E is equal to summation T is equal to 1 to T YTL by 1 plus R to the power T, and whole is divided by T minus 1. So if we send this T minus 1 and cross multiply this T minus 1 with Y0E, then what will be obtained? Then we will get the value as Y0E. If we cross multiply this entirely, this if we cross multiply with Y0E, then what will be obtained? We will get Y0E into T minus 1. This, suppose this is multiplied, 1 minute. Suppose this T minus 1 is multiplied with this Y0E. So what will be obtained? We will get Y0E into T minus 1, and this will remain in the right hand side. So this is our third number of equation. Putting this number 3 equation or number 3rd equation into equation number 2, we are getting this type of value. Now suppose if we take there is another form of the average expected labor income, and which is denoted as Y0E is equal to beta into Y0L. Now if we consider this form of the labor income or average expected labor income, then we can write Y0 in the place of Y0E, that is the Y0E in the place of Y0E we might write beta into Y0L. So after calculating it and after taking Y0L common from this region and Y0L this region, we might take common Y0L, and after taking Y0L common from both of this part or both of these terms of the variable, we might get the variable or we might get the equation in the form of like this: A0 plus Y0L into 1 plus T minus 1 into beta. So what have we done here? Basically what we have taken Y0L common from both of these terms. After taking Y0L common from both of these terms, we have obtained this variable 1 plus T minus 1 into beta, and Y0L is multiplied with it, and A0 is remaining as it was remained earlier in the part of the equation. And how have we been successful to take the common of Y0L? By taking the common of Y0L, we have put the value of Y0E into beta into Y, we have taken the value of Y0E is equal to beta into Y0L, and we have substituted the value of Y0E into the equation as beta into Y0L. Now if we what are the values? Now this equation can be termed as equation 4, and we will try to put this value of equation 4 into equation 3. Now we will try to put the value of equation 4 into equation 1. What was equation 1? Equation 1 was Ct is equal to Kt into Ut. Now as I have told earlier that we have to calculate this value of Ut, and as we have been successful to calculate this value of Ut, we will actually substitute the value of Ut in the equation 1, and then we will get the actual value of the Ct. So we have substituted the value of Ut in the place of Ut in this equation, and what have we obtained? We have obtained Kt is into A0 plus Y0L into 1 plus T minus 1 into beta. Now we will multiply Kt with A0 at first, then we will multiply this Kt with this term of the variable, that is Kt into Y0L into 1 plus T minus 1 into beta. Now the MBA hypothesis actually gives a linear consumption function which is measurable. So what is the form of that linear consumption function? We are trying to show this linear consumption function in the form of Ct is equal to alpha 1 into YTL plus alpha 2 into A0. What is YTL? YTL is basically the labor income, and A0 is the asset income. So it is actually derived from the earlier forms of the function or the earlier forms of the consumption function. So in the earlier form of the consumption function, we have also observed that the consumption is basically the function of labor income and asset income. So it is also observed in this period also, or this term of the equation also, that the consumption has being the function of YTL and A0. YTL is the labor income and A0 is the asset income. Now if we divide this equation with yt, or then it will become ct by yt is equal to alpha 1 into ytl by yt and alpha 2 into A0 by yt. Now as ct by yt is equal to alpha 1 hat into ytl by yt plus alpha 2 hat into A0 by yt. Why have we written alpha 1 hat and alpha 2 hat in the place of alpha 1 and alpha 2? Because we have estimated the value of alpha 1 and alpha 2, and as per the knowledge of econometrics we may write that alpha 1 as when it is estimated, when alpha 1 is estimated it can be written as alpha 1 hat, and when alpha 2 is estimated it can be written as alpha 2 hat. And what is YTL by YT? YTL by YT is the labor share of income. So this portion of the equation is basically the labor share of the income. Similarly, this is the labor share of income, and A0 by YT. What is A0 by YT? A0 by YT is asset share of income. So this portion of the equation is asset share, and this portion of the equation is basically the labor share of the income. Now we are going to the most important part of the hypothesis, that what happens in the long run. In the long run, the labor share of income and asset share of income grow in a very close proportion. Why is it actually happening? Because the asset share of income also grows due to the savings. Due to the savings and due to the rate of interest and savings being accompanied, we may get a higher return. So asset share of income also grows in a very high proportion, and labor share of income also grows in a high proportion. So they grow in a very close proportion to each other. So in long run the entire equation remains quite constant. Now this is the equation. What is it happening here actually? This portion is growing, this portion is also growing, and they are growing at a very close proportion to each other. What do I mean by close proportion to each other? Suppose this is growing at 4 unit, this labor share of income is growing at 4 unit. So this asset share of income is also growing at a close proportion. So it may not grow at a 4 unit, but it is growing suppose at 3 unit. So they are at a very close proportion. They are growing at a close proportion. So the entire equation or entire Ct by Yt remains quite constant. It is not changing much. It is remaining quite constant. So in the long run, labor share of income and asset share of income grows in a very close proportion. So we can say that in the long run the APC, average propensity to consume, remains quite constant. So here it is written also that APC, that is average propensity to consume, and that is Ct by Yt, that remains constant in the long run. But what happens in the short run? Now in the short run labor share of income increases, but asset share of income doesn't increase much, because asset share of income is basically the amount of income that I am obtaining from the savings. Now that saving will not be giving me a very huge amount of rate of interest at a very short period or short time. So in the short run my earning or my interest that I am going to get from the saving will not be very much. So asset share of income remains quite same in the short run, or remains quite constant in the short run, but labor share of income increases in the short run. So what will happen in the equation? What will be the change? Now as we can see in the equation, suppose this was the equation, and in this part, what is this part? This part is our asset share of income, and it is not changing much. It is remaining quite constant and quite same. So this part is constant, but this part, this is our labor share of income, and in the short run it is increasing. This part is increasing in the short run. So our Ct by Y2 will also increase, because this has remained same, this part has remained same, but this part has increased. So obviously this equation, the value of Ct by Yt will increase. So Ct by Yt is increasing in short run, and it is not remaining constant in the short run. So this was the explanation as per the life cycle hypothesis about why the long run constancy and short run variability is taking place in the average propensity to consume, or APC.